Just a few months ago, James Okonkwo, one of the richest, most powerful men in the country, boldly declared that no woman could ever make him fall in love. He called love a scam, a distraction, an impossibility. But today, that same James is not only in love, he's married. To whom? Not a socialite, not a celebrity, but to Amara, a homeless girl the world had forgotten. The girl he once saw sitting on the street, now wears his ring, now holds his heart, now lives as his queen. But their story is far from over. On their wedding night, James made a powerful vow to fight for her, to restore everything her cruel uncle, Chief Zodo, stole from her. Now the question is, will he succeed? Can James take on a dangerous man who has gotten away with betrayal and even murder? Get ready for a journey of justice, passion, and redemption. And if you haven't seen part 1, make sure you watch it first, so you understand how this incredible love story began. And if you're just joining this channel, don't forget to subscribe and give this story a thumbs up, so you never miss a single chapter of these unforgettable stories. Dubai was a city built for excess: golden skylines, desert palaces, 7-star hotels, and lights that refused to sleep. But for James Okonkwo, none of it compared to the glow in Amara's eyes as she stepped barefoot onto the private deck of their honeymoon suite, overlooking the Arabian Gulf. She wore a silk robe, hair undone, skin kissed by sunlight, and a peace James had never known curled around his heart like warmth. 2 weeks had passed since their quiet garden wedding in Nigeria. 2 weeks of no boardrooms, no staff, no security meetings, just long, uninterrupted days wrapped in laughter, sunsets, and whispered "I love yous" between white linen sheets. James had brought Amara to Dubai not to show her luxury. She already had his heart. He brought her to remind himself this was real. She was his, and he was hers. "You're staring again," Amara teased one morning, pouring tea into delicate porcelain cups at a private breakfast table on the helipad terrace of the Burj Al Arab. James leaned back in his chair, arms folded behind his head, that lazy billionaire grin spreading across his lips. "I know," he said. She blinked. "What do you mean you know?" "I know I'm staring, and I'll keep staring. Get used to it." She shook her head and laughed softly, but her cheeks flushed. Even now, after being married to the most powerful man in Lagos, Amara still blushed when he complimented her. And James? He still couldn't believe how the woman he found on a dusty sidewalk was now wrapped in white silk, smiling at him like he was her whole world. A man who once couldn't remember a woman's name 2 days after meeting her was now watching every movement of one woman like it was sacred. Agu didn't believe it. James's best friend had called earlier that week from Lagos. "Guy, are you telling me you've been in Dubai for 14 days and haven't posted one yacht photo? No bikini models, no nightclubs? Who are you and what have you done with James Okonkwo?" James just laughed. "Agu, I've got everything I need right here," he said, watching Amara braid her hair quietly in the mirror across the room. Agu paused. "Wow, you're gone." "Deep," James replied. Amara had changed him, not just his habits, but his heart. He didn't crave the attention anymore. The validation, the thrill of the chase. He found more joy watching Amara eat room service jollof rice in their king-size bed than he ever found in luxury clubs. Sometimes she'd do little things, like wash his shirt by hand, even though the suite had laundry service, or pack his shoes in their boxes at night, whispering, "You're still a king, but I'll always serve you in love." And it undid him. The woman the world would have laughed at, once homeless, dusty, forgotten, was now the anchor of his soul. Their days were filled with joy. One morning they rode camels in the desert, laughing as James nearly fell off. At night they danced barefoot under the stars on the sand, a small band playing Afro beats by firelight. Another afternoon, Amara cried softly as they watched the Dubai fountain show. Not from sadness, but from awe. "I never thought I'd see a world like this," she whispered. James wrapped his arms around her from behind. "This is your world now." But it wasn't all fun. There were moments, quiet ones, when James would wake up at 3 a.m. and find Amara standing by the window, staring out into the city lights. She never said anything. just stood, still and distant. James would rise, walk over, wrap his arms around her waist and whisper, "What's on your mind?" Sometimes she'd answer, "Just wondering how I got here." And sometimes she'd say nothing. But he knew the past still followed her like a shadow. The pain of betrayal, the weight of her stolen legacy, the ghost of her parents, her uncle's evil laughter echoing in her ears when she was 17 and homeless. She had married James, but she hadn't yet buried her past. Until one night, everything shifted. Their last night in Dubai, James stood shirtless on the balcony, sipping chilled water, watching the skyline glow. Mara stepped beside him, her head resting on his shoulder. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. James smiled, but his jaw was tight. "I'm thinking it's time." "For what?" He turned to her, brushing a lock of hair from her face. "It's time to take back what's yours." Her eyes widened. "James, I'm serious. Your father's company, his estate, his legacy, it's not lost, it's stolen, and we're getting it back." She shook her head, fear flickering in her gaze. "You don't understand. Chief Zotto, he's dangerous. He won't stop. He plays dirty. James pulled her gently into his arms and pressed his forehead to hers. "I don't care if he's dangerous. So am I. But no buts. You're my wife, Amara. If I can build $1 billion empire from scratch, I can dismantle a thief's kingdom. And I won't rest until you sit on the throne that belongs to you." Amara swallowed hard, emotion thick in her voice. "You'd do that for me?" James leaned in, whispering, "I'd burn the world down for you." As their private jet took off the next morning, Amara held James's hand tightly, watching Dubai disappear beneath the clouds. This time, she wasn't returning to Nigeria as a cook or a forgotten girl. She was returning as a queen in waiting, and beside her sat the man who would move mountains to restore what was stolen. Neither of them said it out loud, but war had been declared, and this love was the weapon. The private jet touched down at Murtala Muhammad International Airport under heavy security, but this wasn't business as usual. James Okonkwo didn't step off like a billionaire returning from holiday. He stepped off like a king preparing for war. Amara walked beside him, quieter than usual, her wedding ring glinting under the Lagos sun. James squeezed her hand and whispered, "Stay calm. I've got this." But her heart was anything but calm. She knew what was coming, and she feared it would break the man she had just vowed to spend forever with. "This is not just a business matter," James had said on the drive from the airport to Banana Island. "This is a spiritual correction." Amara stared out the window. The Lagos traffic, the chaos, the noise. It all brought back memories. Sleeping behind market stalls, eating gari and crying into the night. The scent of diesel, the laughter of men mocking her as she begged for change. The shame, the rage, the fear. And now, here they were, back in the same city. But this time she wasn't coming back as a beggar. She was coming back with a man who moved economies. By the next morning, James's black Bentley pulled up to a heavily guarded glass tower on the edge of Ikoyi. The large sign gleamed in gold letters. Royal Z Group Headquarters, Vision Beyond Borders. Amara gripped James's arm tightly. "Please, don't go in yet." James looked at her gently. "Amara, you don't know him like I do. Chief Zotto isn't just a thief. He's a wolf in Agbada. He's ruthless. The police are scared of him. He bribes everyone." "I don't care if he bribes heaven and earth," James replied. "He hasn't met me yet." Inside the building, Chief Zotto sat behind a mahogany desk, chewing on roasted groundnuts with a toothpick in his mouth. His Agbada was royal blue, embroidered with thick gold threads. The walls around him were plastered with portraits of himself. The entire office smelled like power and pride. When his secretary whispered, "Sir, someone named James Okonkwo is here to see you," Chief Zotto's eyebrows lifted. He stood up, smoothed his Agbada, and laughed. "The James Okonkwo, oil magnate? Ah, God has buttered my bread today." He assumed James was coming to propose a deal, maybe even a merger. He didn't know. He was about to meet Judgment Day. James walked in, tall, poised, unreadable. A navy blue three-piece suit, black tie, diamond cufflinks. His energy made the temperature in the room drop by 10 degrees. Chief Zoto stood and opened his arms wide. Ah, my brother from another mother. What a surprise. James didn't smile. He didn't extend a hand. He simply said, this office, this seat you sit in, this company belongs to my wife. Silence. Zoto blinked. I beg your pardon? James stepped closer, slow, dangerous. You heard me? You're sitting on a throne you didn't build, a legacy you stole, and you have 48 hours to vacate this office and hand over everything that belonged to Chief Boniface Nwachukwu to his daughter, my wife, Amara. Zoto stared at him in disbelief. Then suddenly, he threw his head back and laughed. So it's about that girl, eh? Zoto sneered. The one I found crawling on the streets like a rat? You married her? You, James Okonkwo, the Almighty? To that cursed orphan girl? James's eyes darkened. His jaw tightened, but he didn't blink. Zoto stepped closer, lowering his voice like a snake. Let me tell you something, Mr. Billionaire. In this culture, in this land, female children don't inherit. Not companies, not estates, not even land. Your wife is nothing but an emotional charity case. James didn't flinch. Instead, he spoke, calmly, deliberately. You're lying from the pit of hell, and I will make the world know it. Zoto leaned back, smirking. Do your worst. I'll still be here. This is Nigeria. Money talks. James nodded slowly. Then he turned to walk out. But at the door, he paused. He looked over his shoulder, and his voice dropped to a deadly whisper. This was your only chance. That night, at home, James told Amar everything. She was horrified. You went there alone? What if he had you followed? James, Chief Zoto doesn't play fair. I've seen him do things, unthinkable things. James only smiled. We'll see who really knows how to play. He stood up, walked to the terrace, and pulled out his phone. Who are you calling? Amar asked. James's eyes gleamed. An old friend with a very dangerous set of skills. And just like that, the playboy billionaire who once bragged that love was a scam was now assembling a team for war. He wasn't just defending his wife's name. He was about to bring down a kingpin with the full weight of the law, technology, and justice. And the first weapon? In his arsenal, a woman named Jessica, beautiful, deadly, and about to become Chief Zoto's greatest mistake. The next morning, James Okonkwo stood alone in his private study, phone in hand, curtains drawn, the Lego sun barely piercing through. A digital folder glowed on his encrypted laptop screen. Inside it, only 3 words. Project Phoenix initiated. This wasn't a love story anymore. This was a takedown. Enter Jessica. Officially, her name was Detective Jessica Monet, a dual-trained specialist with degrees in psychology, counterintelligence, and criminal entrapment. Born to a Nigerian mother and French father, she was recruited into an elite international unit that specialized in strategic seduction ops, targeting high-level corrupt officials through sting operations. Unofficially, she was gorgeous, brilliant, dangerous, and she owed James Okonkwo a favor, a big one. James tapped a single secure contact on his satellite phone. The line connected with a strange click. Bonjour, mon roi, the voice answered smoothly. Jessica, I need you in Lagos, tonight. No hesitation. Who's the target? Chief Zoto. A pause, then a low, amused laugh. You want me to break a vulture's neck in his own nest? Sounds fun. James's voice turned cold. He murdered my wife's parents, robbed her inheritance, and he thinks he's untouchable. Jessica's voice dropped. Then let's make him choke on his own pride. By midnight, she landed. The Gulfstream G650 touched down on a private runway in Epe. No journalists, no entourage, just a woman in all black, wheeling a discreet suitcase, her face shielded by designer sunglasses. Clara, James's loyal staff manager, picked her up in an unmarked vehicle. Inside the car, Jessica slipped out of her coat, revealing curves that could collapse empires in a mind sharper than steel. Get me a list of everyone on Zoto's staff, especially female HR heads. I want to see who's weak, who's greedy, and who's jealous. I'll slide in through the cracks. The setup. The next morning, Zoto's HR director, a woman named Mabel, received an unexpected CV in her inbox. The name? Jessica Imani. Qualifications? Ivy League schools, corporate law, bilingual experience, stellar. And the attached photo? A stunning model-esque woman with a Mona Lisa smile and perfect cheekbones. Mabel gasped. She forwarded the CV straight to Zoto's personal email with one line. Sir, I think you'll want to meet this one yourself. Zoto's hook. By noon, Jessica was invited for an interview. By 2 p.m., she sat across from Chief Zoto in a tight-fitting navy dress, legs crossed, voice soft, gaze submissive, but with undertones of danger. Zoto couldn't stop smiling. He didn't care what her CV said. She had already passed the test he actually cared about. You want to work with me? Zoto asked, his tone oily. Jessica tilted her head, her voice laced with manufactured shyness. I've always wanted to work for powerful men. Men who know how to lead. Zoto grinned. You've found one. The seduction begins. She got the job. No reference checks, no due diligence. Within 72 hours, she had a desk just outside his office, and it didn't take long. By the end of the week, Zoto was leaning over her shoulder, accidentally brushing her arm. By week 2, he started inviting her for late meetings. He brought her rare wine from his private stash, left handwritten notes on her desk. Jessica giggled like a schoolgirl and wore a hidden wire under her blouse the entire time. The rules of the game. Every night, Jessica uploaded footage to James's encrypted drive. Conversations, memos, account files, casual boasts, but it wasn't enough. They needed a confession. They needed Zoto to spill the truth about Amara's parents. So Jessica raised the stakes. Week 3, the affair. One Friday evening, Zoto invited her to his private estate in Lekki Phase 1. Jessica showed up in a satin emerald green dress. Zoto poured her a drink. The conversation started casual, then turned intimate, then heated. Jessica leaned in, her voice breathy. You're not like the other men I've worked with. You have power, real power. I want to know everything about you. How you got it, how you kept it. Teach me. Zoto's ego roared like a lion. He drank deeply, then leaned back on his couch and smirked. You really want to know how I got it all? Yes, she whispered, stroking his hand. He chuckled. Then let me tell you a little story. And just like that, he began to talk. About Boniface Nwachukwu, about the boardroom betrayal, about the tampered brakes, about how he paid a mechanic N5 million to arrange an accident, about how he planned everything while Amara had malaria, how he told the staff to disappear, how he made the girl vanish from the estate like she was never born. Jessica listened, nodded, pretended to be impressed, all while her eyeglasses recorded everything. Audio, video, the confession that would destroy him. Back at James's mansion that night, Jessica sat at his desk, uploading the final file. James stood behind her, fists clenched, jaw tight, every muscle trembling with rage. When the video finished playing, he looked at her. He confessed? Jessica nodded. Word for word. James breathed slowly. The billionaire had just become a weapon, and his wife's enemy had just walked straight into his own grave. The lion was in the cage, but James wanted him to roar before the fall. He needed more. More proof, more betrayal, more darkness spilled from Chief Zoto's lips. The goal wasn't just to expose him, it was to ruin him. Completely. And Jessica? She was about to become his mirror and his undoing. By the 4th week, Chief Zoto was no longer the ruthless overlord who barked orders and struck fear across boardrooms. He was smitten, obsessed, addicted. Jessica had become his weakness. He couldn't last a day without her scent, a night without her voice, a meeting without her presence. He started skipping high-level boardroom briefings just to have lunch with her behind closed doors. To Zoto, she was no longer just a secretary or a bright young hire. She was his muse, his comfort, his dirty secret, and his trap. The web tightens. At first, Jessica had played the role of the coy admirer, but now she switched strategies. She became curious, intimate, dangerously inquisitive. And Chief Zoto? He spilled more than he ever realized. One humid Wednesday evening, as the sun dipped over Lecky and the ocean breeze slipped through the half-open blinds, Zoto lay shirtless on his velvet couch, a glass of whiskey in one hand, Jessica's legs draped across his lap. She traced patterns on his chest, eyes half-lidded. "I don't get it," she whispered. "You've built all this, and no one's tried to stop you?" He chuckled smugly. "Stop me? Who can stop me? This country belongs to people like me." Jessica tilted her head. "But what about the Nwachukwu family?" Instant freeze. Zoto's eyes narrowed. "Why would you bring them up?" Jessica leaned in, faking fear. "I just heard whispers that the company you own used to belong to someone else, that there was some controversy." Zoto smirked and sipped his drink. "They can whisper all they want," he said. "The man's dead. His daughter? She's probably a beggar or a prostitute by now. I made sure she'd never come back." Jessica gasped, letting just the right amount of horror show. "You made sure?" Zoto leaned back, proud of his own evil. "I bribed the board, paid the staff to resign, bought the house in my name within a week of the funeral. I buried her family faster than the coffin hit the ground." He grinned. "You have no idea what I'm capable of, baby girl." Jessica's smile never reached her eyes. She nodded, whispered admiration, stroked his ego, and wore the camera glasses every second. This wasn't just seduction anymore. It was confession extraction. Every boast was damning, every line recorded, every drink proof of loosened lips. Zoto grew reckless. He stopped caring who saw them together. Office rumors began to swirl. His once firm grip on the Royal Z board started slipping as directors noticed the shift in his focus. He started signing off on transfers without reading the memos, approving deals without due diligence, missing international calls. Jessica was taking everything from him, and he was offering it up willingly. Even the company accountant, a sharp-eyed man named Mr. Dogo, noticed something was off. He approached Zoto late one Friday afternoon. "Chief," he said carefully, "this woman, this Jessica, we don't know any, and recently your financial trails are starting to look." Zoto cut him off with a violent slam of his fist on the table. "Get out! I built this empire. Not you. If I want to enjoy it, I will." Mr. Dogo bowed slightly. "As you wish, sir." But he sent an anonymous tip to an investigative journalist that same evening. Jessica pulled the final string. It was time for the kill shot. One night, as Zoto danced half-drunk in his robe, singing to a high-life record, Jessica slipped her arm around him from behind. "Tell me something you've never told anyone," she whispered. He chuckled. "You want a secret?" "Yes." He twirled, grinning. "I didn't just steal the company." He leaned close to her lips. "I killed for it." Jessica froze. Just a moment. What do you mean?" Zoto grinned like a man too far gone to filter himself. "I paid the mechanic, told him to sabotage the brakes. I was supposed to be in that car that day too, but I made sure I missed the trip." His laughter was drunken and evil. "They trusted me. Boniface called me his brother. I buried my own brother and danced at the will reading." Jessica kissed his cheek, whispering, "That's the most powerful thing I've ever heard." And just like that, he said it. He confessed to murder. James watched every frame. Back in his study, James Okonkwo watched the footage in silence. Amara sat beside him, frozen, her face pale, her hand over her mouth. The man who had haunted her life had just confessed on video. She turned to James, whispering, "What now?" James stood slowly. Now it was war. He picked up his phone and called his legal team. "Prepare the suit," he said. "On what grounds?" his head lawyer asked. James's voice was steel. "Murder, fraud, grand theft, corporate hijacking, and emotional terrorism." Chief Zoto thought he was untouchable. He walked through the marbled halls of Royal Z Company like a king. Employees bowed, whispered, and avoided his eyes. The boardroom still held his framed portrait in gold leaf. His fleet of luxury cars, Bentleys, Rolls-Royces, a black bulletproof Maybach, lined the reserved VIP parking. But what he didn't know was that his kingdom was already on fire. And the spark was her, Jessica. The woman he trusted, touched, talked to in whispers, had just signed his death warrant. Well, the morning after Jessica didn't return to the office the next morning, she'd vanished. No calls, no texts, no trace. Chief Zoto, still drowsy from too much whiskey and delusion, waited, then paced, then ordered the receptionist, "Find her. Tell her to call me. Now." No response. For the first time in weeks, he felt something he hadn't felt since he stole the company. Fear. Meanwhile, in Ikoyi, James stood at the center of his private security operations room, a glass chamber tucked beneath his estate, where silent men in black suits monitored satellite feeds, encrypted calls, and legal updates around the clock. On the screen before him played the damning video once more. "Zoto, I paid the mechanic, told him to sabotage the brakes. I was supposed to be in that car that day too, but I made sure I missed the trip." Jessica's voice. "You killed your brother?" Zoto. "Not just him, his wife too. The brat? She vanished. I prayed the streets would finish her." The air in the room felt like it had dropped 10 degrees. James turned to his lead counsel, Barrister Eniton. "Is this enough?" Eniton's jaw was tight. "Enough? This will bury him." James gave a single nod. "Then let's dig the grave." Legal firestorm. Begin within 48 hours, James filed an official lawsuit. Charge 1, first-degree murder. Charge 2, corporate fraud. Charge 3, identity falsification. Charge 4, theft of estate and assets. Charge 5, emotional and psychological trauma inflicted on Amara Nwachukwu. Media outlets caught wind instantly. Breaking: billionaire James Okonkwo sues business tycoon Chief Zoto for murder and fraud. Royal Z Company scandal: a fallen heiress and a cold case reopened. Did Chief Zoto kill his own brother to steal his empire? By noon, hashtags were trending. Hack a justice for Amara. Zoto exposed. At Royal Z Truth, Zoto tries to fight back. In his mansion, Zoto screamed at his lawyer, Barrister Kalu, pounding his gold-plated desk. "Lies, all of it!" Kalu was sweating. "Sir, we need to respond with a press statement immediately." Zoto barked. "And say what? That I slept with my assistant and confessed to murder like a fool?" Kalu glanced away. Silence. Zoto's face darkened. "You think I'm finished?" "No, sir, but you must prepare for trial. This isn't a smear campaign anymore. This is war." The setup unravels. Week later, during a press briefing held by James's lawyers, the world saw her. Jessica, but not as Zoto knew her. Gone were the sleek dresses and soft curls. She wore a crisp suit, her badge visible. Detective Jessica Harper, Special Intelligence Liaison, International Crime Unit. She walked onto the podium and faced the cameras. "My name is Detective Jessica Harper, and I was embedded into Royal Z Company under the instruction of Mr. James Okonkwo to investigate illegal corporate activity and unresolved crimes. I wore surveillance at all times. The evidence we've gathered reveals an orchestrated corporate hijack and a murder." 1,000 camera shutters clicked. The room erupted. Zoto's world was in freefall in Amara's heart. That evening, Amara sat on the balcony of their Ikoyi estate, her arms wrapped around herself as she watched the sunset dim behind the palms. James came up behind her, placed a hand on her shoulder. "You okay?" he asked. "I don't know what I feel," she whispered. "Part of me is relieved. Part of me is terrified." "Why?" "Because I don't just want justice," she said. "I want to forgive him, and I hate myself for that." James sat beside her. "There's no shame in a kind heart, but kindness doesn't mean silence. It means strength. And now your voice will be heard." Tears welled in her eyes, not of weakness, but of healing. The summons. 2 days later, officers in black SUVs arrived at Chief Zoto's estate. The gates opened slowly. He emerged, still dressed like royalty, white agbada, gold wristwatch, and fury in his eyes. "You think I'll rot in jail?" he hissed at the officers. "Do you know who I am?" The lead officer calmly replied, "Yes, sir. The man under arrest." Handcuffs clicked, and for the first time in 20 years, the man who stole everything lost everything. The sun rose over Lagos like a warning bell, and with it, the city buzzed with one headline: The People versus Chief Zodo, Murder, Betrayal, and the Heiress Who Returned from the Dead. By 900, the Federal High Court of Lagos was swarmed with journalists, protesters, and spectators trying to get a glimpse of Nigeria's most dramatic court case in a decade. Inside the marble courtroom, a quiet storm was brewing. Amara sat on the front bench beside James, both dressed in black. Her eyes were fixed on the large oak doors, her fingers trembling slightly. Though she'd spent nights reliving the trauma, nothing had prepared her for this moment. The man who destroyed her life was about to face the world. And justice. The courtroom fills. The judge entered. Justice Mabel Iroanya, a sharp, composed woman known for her fierce independence and refusal to be bought. All rise, the bailiff called. Everyone stood as the judge took her seat. Her presence demanded silence. Bring in the defendant, she said. All eyes turned as Chief Zodo was escorted in, flanked by armed guards. But this wasn't the confident man from boardrooms or red carpets. His agbada was plain, his eyes were puffy, and the swagger was gone. He looked afraid. Yet as he walked past James and Amara, he sneered. I hope you enjoyed your show, he muttered. James didn't respond. Amara didn't blink, but her fingers tightened into fists. The charges are read. The courtroom clerk read the charges aloud. Chief Zebulon Obenaduru, also known as Chief Zodo, you are hereby charged with 1. Conspiracy to commit murder. Premeditated murder of Chief Boniface Nwachukwu and his wife, Lady Ijeoma Nwachukwu. 3. Fraudulent acquisition and misappropriation of corporate and estate assets. 4. Forgery of legal documents. 5. Defamation and psychological abuse of Miss Amara Nwachukwu. The list echoed like thunder. Chief Zodo laughed bitterly, shaking his head. Lies. All lies. This is character assassination. The judge banged her gavel. You will speak only when asked to, Chief Zodo. Zodo muttered something under his breath, but his eyes scanned the room, searching, twitching, and then he saw her. Jessica. No makeup, no flirting smile, no silky dress, just a fitted black suit, dark lipstick, and a badge, sitting with confidence at the prosecution bench. Detective Jessica Harper. And suddenly Zodo's smirk died. Opening arguments begin. Barrister Enitan stood for the prosecution. Your Honor, this is not just a case of corruption. It is a case of blood. A man who murdered his own brother out of greed. A man who cast out a teenage girl to suffer in the streets just so he could climb a throne soaked in betrayal. But today, he will answer for it. The defense lawyer, Barrister Kalu, responded stiffly. The prosecution is basing their case on a personal vendetta. A cook-turned-heiress and a billionaire husband who cannot prove their allegations. We will show the court this is a fabricated tale, meant to destroy a legacy. The judge listened with piercing eyes. Call your first witness, she ordered. Jessica takes the stand. All heads turned as Jessica walked to the stand. Calm, calculated, collected. State your name and occupation. Detective Jessica Harper, International Criminal Investigator, Undercover Division. And your relationship to the defendant? Jessica folded her hands. For 1 month, I posed as a job applicant at Royal Z Company. I was hired by Chief Zodo as a personal assistant. During this time, I conducted an undercover operation with full consent of Nigerian and international authorities. The judge raised an eyebrow. You wore a wire? Jessica nodded. Wire, body cam, and an encrypted transmission unit. Everything Chief Zodo said to me in private was recorded, both audio and visual. Gasps filled the courtroom. Chief Zodo sat forward in his chair. Objection, Your Honor. These recordings were not obtained legally. She tricked me. Justice Iroanya narrowed her eyes. Are you saying you did not consent to conversations in your own office? She manipulated me, Zodo barked. Overruled, the judge said. Continue. Jessica pulled out a flash drive. I have 27 hours of footage, but I'll play only the relevant section. The screen lit up, and the courtroom fell silent. The confession Chief Zodo's voice echoed through the court. I paid the mechanic to tamper with the brakes. My brother was too soft, too idealistic. I warned him. He wanted to give everything to that little girl. I couldn't let that happen. Jessica, off camera. What about your niece, Amara? Zoto's voice. She was supposed to die in the streets, and now she's probably somebody's maid. Let her rot. That empire is mine. You could hear a pin drop, the camera cut to his face. Confident, smirking, admitting everything. Then came another clip. Zoto, if she ever comes back, she'll see. This world belongs to men like me. The judge sat back in her chair, stunned. The gavel came down with a sharp crack. Enough, she said, cross-examination. The defense lawyer tried to rattle Jessica. Miss Harper, were you seducing the defendant during this investigation? Jessica smiled. I did what was necessary to gain trust, and it worked. You were intimate with him? No, sir. I allowed him to think that, but you'll find no trace of me in his bedroom. Not even fingerprints. I was never his lover. Only his undoing. Zoto screamed from the defendant box. You witch! You ruined me! The judge banged her gavel. Chief Zoto, you are in contempt of court. One more outburst and I will have you gagged. The courtroom buzzed with murmurs. Zoto slumped back in his seat, boiling, the moment of collapse. As Jessica returned to her seat, Amara watched with tears in her eyes. The woman who helped destroy the man who destroyed her life had just given her the voice she thought she lost. James reached over, gently squeezing her hand. Almost over, he whispered. But Amara whispered back, No, boss, it's just beginning. The sun had climbed halfway across the Lagos skyline when the courtroom doors opened again. For the second day of the trial, security had doubled. Armed officers stood at every corner. Reporters lined the street with flashing cameras, their headlines already drafted. The trial of Chief Zoto. Will justice finally speak? Inside, it felt like the air itself was holding its breath. Amara sat motionless, her back straight, her eyes steady. She looked like her mother in that moment, noble, strong, unshaken. Dressed in an all-white trouser suit with her natural curls pinned back, she no longer looked like a girl who had once slept on the streets. She looked like an heiress. James, seated beside her, held her hand beneath the table, quietly. His face was unreadable, but his eyes carried a storm of restraint. On the opposite side, Chief Zoto entered in cuffs, his eyes bloodshot, his pride hanging in tatters. No entourage, no aides, no supporters. He was alone, and the world was watching. The final testimonies, Justice Iroanya took her seat. The gavel slammed down. Court is now in session, day 2 of the People versus Chief Zebulon Daru. Defense and prosecution may proceed with final remarks before the court reaches a verdict. The prosecutor, Barrister Knighton, rose. Your Honor, we have shown the truth, not only through testimony, but through technology, confession, motive, and documentation. A man who murdered his own brother, stole from an innocent girl, manipulated corporate law, and wore tradition like a mask to hide his own evil. Chief Zoto is not a victim. He is a predator, and justice must roar today, not whisper. Murmurs echoed to it. The defense lawyer, Barrister Kalu, stood shakily. Your Honor, with all due respect, the testimonies rely on emotional manipulation. Yes, a family tragedy occurred. Yes, an unfortunate loss. But where is the proof that my client intended to murder? He merely inherited what was left behind. No court should be allowed to convict a man based on bitterness and accusation, especially when tribal customs support male inheritance. That last line made James scoff aloud. Justice Iroanya raised an eyebrow. Are you suggesting our laws bend for outdated customs, counsel? The defense lawyer stammered. Not at all, Your Honor. Then sit down. He did. Quickly, the verdict is reached. Justice Iroanya looked to the jury box. 12 men and women who had not said a word but had observed everything. Have you reached a verdict? A woman in a blue headscarf stood, holding the sheet of paper. Yes, Your Honor, we have. She handed it to the bailiff. The judge opened it, read it, and placed it face down. The entire courtroom tensed. Amara gripped James's hand tighter. Zoto's eyes darted nervously. Justice Irwanya took a breath. In the matter of the people versus Chief Zebulon Duru, on the charges of conspiracy to commit murder, guilty. On the charges of premeditated murder, guilty. On the charges of fraudulent acquisition, guilty. On the charges of corporate forgery, guilty. On the charges of psychological abuse and defamation, guilty. Gasps, applause, tears. Zoto slammed both fists against the wooden railing. This is a setup. I am a chief. You can't do this to me. I built that empire. You stole it, Amara shouted suddenly, rising to her feet. You killed for it. The bailiffs moved toward both of them, but the judge raised her hand. Let her speak. Silence returned. Amara's voice shook, but she spoke from her gut. You thought I would die in the street. You thought no one would ever care. But I survived, I lived, and today the truth wins. She sat back down, breath trembling. Justice Irwanya fixed her eyes on Chief Zoto one last time. You are not a victim of injustice. You are a man drunk on entitlement. You took a throne that never belonged to you. You silenced a child and called it culture. Today, we silence you with justice. Chief Zebulon Obinaduru, you are hereby sentenced to life imprisonment with hard labor, with no option for parole. Boom, the gavel fell. The fallout chaos erupted outside the courthouse. Cameras flashed, reporters shoved microphones at Amara and James. Protesters cheered. Some of Zoto's former allies were seen sneaking away quietly, removing rings, head caps, even deleting his name from their bios online. But inside the courtroom, Amara wept quietly, her head on James's shoulder. Not from sadness, not from vengeance, but from release. The past had finally let go, and justice had spoken. Zoto's last words. As he was dragged away, Zoto screamed at James one last time. You think you've won, billionaire, but I built that empire. She didn't. I did. James didn't respond. He simply placed his hand gently over Amara's heart. She's more powerful than you ever were, he said quietly, because she did what you never could. She rose without stepping on anyone. Zoto screamed all the way down the hallway, but the doors closed behind him. Forever. It had been 3 weeks since Chief Zoto's sentencing, and Lagos was still buzzing. Newspapers ran headlines like, Heiress Amara Nwachukwu reclaims her throne. The cook who became queen. Love, justice, and power, the woman who defeated a titan. But Amara wasn't seeking attention. She had gotten what she needed. Not fame, not applause, but peace. Still something waited, something unfinished. It was time to go home. The company that once was hers, that morning, the sun painted golden streaks across the sky as a sleek black Range Rover pulled into the gates of Royal Z Holdings. Only now the name on the plaque had changed. Nwachukwu Group. The name her father built from nothing. The name they tried to erase. The name that had finally returned home. James stepped out first, dressed in a navy blue suit. The staff who once bowed to Chief Zoto now stood straight, awaiting their real boss. Then she stepped out. Amara. Hair in a high bun, flowing white silk pantsuit, silver heels. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. She didn't need to. She already looked like destiny. Every worker bowed. Welcome home, Madam Chairwoman, one whispered. Amara smiled faintly and entered the lobby. Her heels echoed on the marble floors as she made her way toward the glass office on the top floor, her father's office. Inside the legacy. The doors opened slowly. The room was silent. Dust particles danced in the light. Her father's framed photo still sat above the window. His desk, polished, grand, and untouched, waited. Amara stepped forward, her eyes filling with tears. She touched the desk gently, remembering sitting there as a child while her father signed papers. James walked in behind her, quietly, giving her space. She turned around slowly, holding a folder in her hand. These are the new documents, she said. The company is legally in my name. The properties, the estate in Enugu, even the offshore accounts. It's all mine again. James smiled. Yours by right. Amara walked to him, placed the folder on the table, and reached for his hands. "Do you realize what you did for me?" she said softly. James tilted his head. "I kept a promise." She shook her head. "No, James, you didn't just fight for me. You gave me back my life. You helped me find the version of me I buried years ago. The version who believed she could lead, who believed she deserved joy. You made me believe again." He looked at her for a long, silent moment, and then, voice steady, he whispered, "No, Amara, you're the one who made me believe again. In love, in honor, in purpose. You turned a man who once bought people into a man who'd give everything just to protect one woman." A tear slid down her cheek. She leaned her forehead against his. "Thank you," she whispered. "I'll love you forever, my king." He smiled through misty eyes. "And I'll remain forever grateful that you made me know what love is again." They didn't throw a party. They didn't call the press. Instead, that evening, James and Amara drove to the small Yaba street where she once sat curled on a pavement, holding nothing but her satchel and her sorrow. She stood there silently. Same spot, same road, but this time in heels and hope. She turned to James. "I want to build a shelter here. For girls like me, the ones no one sees." He nodded. "Then we will." Because now her story wasn't just a testimony, it was a beginning of legacy, of justice, of love, and of a queen who once lost everything, but rose again with fire. True love sees beyond status, wealth, or past wounds. It heals, restores, and empowers. With courage and justice, even the broken can rise. This story reminds us that redemption is real, and love, when genuine, can rewrite even the darkest fate. We truly hope you enjoyed this unforgettable story. If it touched your heart, inspired you, or made you reflect, we'd love to hear from you. Share your thoughts and lessons learned in the comment section below. Your words mean a lot to us, and we read every single one. And guess what? Another powerful, emotional, and life-changing story is coming in just a few days. So if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and turn on your notification bell so you'll be the first to know when we drop it. If this story moved you, don't forget to hit the like button and share it with your family and friends, because someone you know might need this message today. Thank you so much for watching. Stay inspired, stay hopeful, and above all, stay loved.